at Mr. Grammarian, I'm going to say this in advance, a pithy meeting.
Oh, very nice.
It's going to be a change on the agenda. Our evaluator number 3 is going to be now Mr. Pablo. He's going to be evaluating Stephany.
Okay.
I hope you obeyed your boss's
Yes.
this morning, because we are going to have some fun here. Our theme today is Battle of Sexes, Best of Acts. Are you ready?
Yes.
Yes.
Ding, 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 ding.
But before the battle begins, let's introduce our technical table. Mr. Grammarian earns, what is the word of the day?
Good morning, Madam Toastmasters, fellow Toastmasters, and honored guests. The fundamental role of the grammarian is to help members express themselves clearly and concisely. Grammarians has 2 basic responsibilities. First, to introduce new words to members, and second, to comment on exceptional and improper use of the English language during the course of the meeting. Therein lies my problem. So I'm taking Diana as my debut grammarian. The word of today is pithy, not related to pissy. So anybody who's been reading, watching the O'Reilly Factor, you know exactly what I'm talking about.
Could be pissy while you're pithy.
Yeah, give me pissy while you're pithy. Okay, concise to the point, and I will be concise during the grammarian's word today. Madam Toastmaster.
Thank you. Now we have, who is next? My timer?
Good morning, Madam Toastmaster, fellow Toastmasters, and guests. My function as the timer is to make sure the meeting stays on schedule. So during the speaker's speech, you each have a designated time: Martin between 4 and 6 minutes, Paul between 5 and 7, and Stephany between 8 and 10. When you get to the 3-minute mark before your speech, I will be holding up the green card. When you have 1 minute left, I will hold up the yellow card, and then when you are over your time, I will hold up the red card. The evaluators, you each have 3 minutes. When you get to the 2-minute mark, I will hold up the green card. When you get to the 2-minute and 30 seconds mark, I will hold up the yellow card. And at 3 minutes, I'll hold up the red card. Table topics, people, we all have 1 minute to be very pithy in our answers and make sure that we get our point across. So at 30 seconds, I'll hold up the green card. At 45 seconds, the yellow card. And when you're at 1 minute, I'll hold up the red card. Thank you.
Thank you. And last but not least, we have our up-counter, Erica.
Good morning, Toastmaster, fellow Toastmasters, and guests. I'm going to be very pithy in explaining the role of the odd counter this morning because, as Stephen mentioned, we just got back from a holiday weekend and I'm still working on getting my land legs. So I hope you're not going to put me into the ring because I'm already swaying. The purpose of the odd counter is to note words and sounds used as a crutch or pregnant pause by anyone who speaks during the meeting. Words may be inappropriate interjections such as and, well, but, so, you know. Sounds may be I will be listening for double clutches such as I, this means, and an infraction today is 5 cents. Thank you.
Thank you. So, are you ready? Women versus men. Who is faster?
We are.
Yeah, there you go. Yes, I agree. Who is cleaner?
We are.
Yes, we are. Who is look at Steven.
Smarter. We are.
Who is smarter? Yes, we are. The eternal women versus men competition. This is all the time. And today won't help your Toastmaster. Belongs to the girly team. That's not going to help. But I'll do my best to be objective with some of the human gender fun facts. Number 1, who is the boss at home?
Women.
Men.
If men want a happier marriage, let's keep it here. This is a secret. If you want a happier marriage, men should let the wife be the boss over household issues, right? According to the Iowa State University, women having stronger opinions regarding their home and family tend to control household matters, such as family schedules, etc. And husbands were the happiest if they did not disagree. I agree. Blah, 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 blah. A woman speaks about 7,000 words a day. A man speak about 2,000. This is the first part of our meeting, and this is going to, the next session, going to be designed for our 3 speakers. This morning we have 3 very talented speakers, and each of them has been prepared in advance, and they will have time depending on the Toastmaster manual on the project they will be working on. Our first speaker this morning is going to tell us about himself. From the Competent Communication Manual, project number 1, the Icebreaker, please let me welcome to the podium Martin Bell.
Thank you, Madam Toastmaster, fellow Toastmasters, and guests. I hope everybody enjoyed their holiday weekend. I hope everybody took a moment to celebrate and honor those that have paid the ultimate sacrifice for the freedoms that we enjoy in this blessed country of ours. I was driving back on Sunday nights from Tampa, where I spent the day celebrating my niece's 5th year birthday, and enjoying an afternoon of playing with her and some of her friends in the pool, and playing hide and seek and with her new dinosaurs and dolls and Barbies. And I'm not too old for that, but I'm not that young either. And I was thinking along the 2-hour drive from Tampa to Lake Mary, how I could keep everyone's attention for 4 minutes, whereas I probably could keep it very pithy and have 30 seconds to 45 seconds of good material, keep everybody interested in who I am and where I'm from. And I was thinking, well, what would folks find interesting? And to me, I think what makes us who we are is perhaps where we're from and our backgrounds. And so I'd like to start my story there at the beginning. If you can think back to the mid to late 1970s, I was living in Argentina as a youngster, born of an Argentinian father and English mother. And I spent my first 4 years with 16 aunts and uncles in the capital of Argentina, Buenos Aires. A lot of love and a lot of time spent with family. Obviously, there's a lot of visits and places to go when you have so many family members. My dad's mother-in-law thought that it was a little unsafe in Buenos Aires at the time. People were disappearing. Politics and the military were going through some pretty tumultuous times. So my parents decided to move us halfway across the world, going from south to north to England to be with my mom's family in Birmingham, the second largest city there in England. And while I don't remember it, I think a lot of what occurred during my childhood and my tendency to be introverted had much to do with that move. And again, I don't remember it. My parents say that the first day I went to school, I came back crying incredibly because nobody understood what I was saying. And I told both my parents that I never wanted to speak Spanish again. So I've now spent over 30 years trying to get back to conversational Spanish, my first language. After spending 3 or 4 years in England, my dad wanted to find a better life for all of us, as many folks do. And of course, where did they decide to move? Where would you move if you got half your family in South America, half your family in Europe? You moved to Detroit, Michigan. It's kind of halfway. It's kind of halfway. But no, the reason they did move to Detroit, Michigan is that's where my parents met in the 60s, back in the 60s. Detroit, due to the automotive industry, was a happening place. And they met dancing in Detroit while my father was working in the automotive industry. My mother was working as a nanny for a family in Grosse Pointe Shores. So that's where we were raised for the most part, in the suburbs of Detroit, Michigan, which is a great place to raise a family and to live. If you've never gone to the Midwest, Midwesterners are some of the friendliest people in the country. The one thing that I noticed, however, in talking with my friends and their families, is that many didn't travel outside of the state of Michigan. I found it fairly unusual in that many of my friends had never taken the time to travel across the border, taking a bridge to a whole new country, Canada, on the other side, or even to travel down to the state of Ohio, which was only a couple of hours drive. So I had a great time growing up in Michigan, but as soon as I graduated college, and having met a friend in college that was from Miami, who took us to South Beach on spring break, and for a 19, 20-year-old guy going down to Florida in February, that's a great time. I would recommend it to you young there, Richard. Moving here to Orlando, Florida, I really enjoyed the diversity of all the folks here. It's amazing how few people you meet when you move to Orlando that actually were born and raised in Orlando. I can probably count on just two hands how many people I've met here that were born and raised here. It seems as though this particular piece of the country has folks from the East Coast, the West Coast, the Midwest, and it's just as the United States is, it's a melting pot of people from all over the place. So I've enjoyed that. One thing I did forget to mention is that when we moved from Argentina to England, kids don't tend to enjoy the British accent so much. So while I was speaking the same language, I wasn't speaking it the same way. And that British accent is something I lost very, very quickly in the 4th grade. And it's something I wish I had when I was in high school or college. That would came in very, very handy. So, here I am at Toastmasters. I'm learning how to get back into public speaking after a early childhood and childhood of trying to speak the same language, speak it in a similar way, and be more confident about myself doing so. So thank you for your time. Hopefully you didn't put too many folks to sleep, but it's a pleasure to be here and to learn from all of you.
Amazing icebreaker, Martin. Can we get a timer report, please?
Pardon?
No, 1 minute. We'll do it. 1 minute. Just 1 minute.
Okay.
1 minute on
1
the
minute
clock.
for evaluation, please.
Yeah, you have to fill this out.
One minute. Thank you. Our second speaker will be revisiting some of his experience in recent years for your entertainment. Delivering project number 3, Make Them Laugh, from the Entertainment Speaker Manual, speech title, That Brown Bag. Please help me welcome Paul Walsh.
Poop, poop, poop. Some of you may have been living a life full of friendship or full of laughter the last couple of years. Well, I feel like I've been living a life full of poop. Good morning, fellow Toastmasters, and welcome guests. Some of you may know I had boy-girl twins about 7 years ago. I also have my share of animals around the house. So all this added together means I have dealt with more than my share of poopy situations, and I thought I'd share some of those with you today. Partially for your entertainment, but also partially from a kind of poop therapy. So the first situation happened when my kids were about 8 months, and we were eating Quiznos with my in-laws. And my daughter had a poopy diaper, and we were surprised to find that the restroom didn't have a changing table. So my father-in-law offered his truck, which was parked right outside, and he said it had a bench seat. So my wife headed outside to change her. Meantime, we were finishing eating, so we threw our trash away and headed outside. As we did, I heard my father-in-law say, "What are you doing? My truck's over there." She had picked the first white truck she saw, and especially since the door was unlocked, she thought it was his. She did say she thought it was a little messier than usual, but she didn't think much of that. She had changed the poopy diaper in some stranger's truck. And we laughed as we drove away, wondering that person that came out of the store and got in his truck and was wondering why it smelled like poop. Now you know, there's more than one reason to lock your doors. The next situation that I wanted to go over is what I consider the pinnacle of my poop prime. Not only did we have 2 babies and 2 miniature collies, but we offered to babysit a kitten. And with the kitten comes a litter box. And my dogs have a nasty habit of wanting to eat cat poop, or really any poop. When the one dog was little, and we finally got her trained to go outside, she would pick up the poop and bring it back inside.
Oh!
So the situation I want to describe for you was I was changing my son's diaper. I had him on the changing table with one hand. I was reaching for the wipes with another hand. I look over and I see this kitten using the litter box, and I see my dogs screeching like predators, licking their chops, watching them go to the bathroom, waiting, and I'm thinking, this is the life. I cannot stop my dogs from eating the cat poop because I have to change his poopy diaper. And the last situation is a little messier. We were up at 5 in the morning, as you commonly are with small kids, and we had my son in an exerciser, which is a play area where before they can stand or walk, you can put them in, they can build up their legs and bounce around, and they can also play with the little things to entertain themselves. And as he was doing this, we smelled an odor. So we went over and I checked him, and sure enough, not only did he have poop, but he had diarrhea. And it had worked its way up his back and all over the exerciser. This is one of those times when you want to wake up and realize you're having a nightmare, but we were living it. So I took him up, and I took him upstairs and put him in the bathtub, and luckily we had one of those pull-out spray nozzles so I could hose them off. And I think we retired those clothes because they had done their duty, literally. So then I got them all clean, and I took them downstairs to clean up the exerciser, and I came to find my dogs had decided to start cleaning it for me. They say to do more before 6 a.m. than most people do all day, but I don't think this is what they had in mind. So I wouldn't change my experiences for anything, but I do think I've dealt with more than my share of poop in the last couple of years. You would think we'd be anxious to move on, and we are, but we've started fostering puppies now, so it seems like we're still dealing with a lot of poop. But as a tribute to at least the end of an era with my kids, I thought I'd leave you with one of my kids' favorite jokes. What's the difference between boogers and broccoli? You don't eat broccoli.
Oh, that's right, your father-in-law.
I'm glad I was not eating breakfast, but that was awesome. A minute, please, for evaluation. Our last speaker states, much like the author of her story, memories of being raised by her mother are a mixture of deep admiration and sheer embarrassment. Here reading chapter 2 of James McBride's The Color of Water, the Bicycle, distinguished Toastmaster Stephany Bonnie Byrne.
Thank you, Madam Toastmaster. Fellow Toastmasters, welcome guests. When I was 14, my mother took up two new hobbies, riding a bicycle and playing piano. The piano I didn't mind, but the bicycle drove me crazy. It was a huge old clunker, blue with white trim, with big fat tires, huge fenders, and a battery-powered horn built into the middle of the frame with a button you push to make it blow. The contraption would be a collector's item now, probably worth about $5,000. But back then, it was something my stepfather found on a street in Brooklyn and hauled home a few months before he died. I don't know whether it was his decision to pull out or not, but I think not. He was 72 when he died, trim, strong, easygoing, seemingly infallible. And though he was my stepfather, I always thought of him as Daddy. He was a quiet, soft-spoken man who wore old-timey clothes, fedoras, button-down wool coats, suspenders, and dressed neatly at all times, regardless of how dirty his work made him. He did everything slowly and carefully, but beneath his tractor-like slowness and outward gentleness was a crossbreed of quiet Indian and country black man. Sure-footed, hard, bold, and quick. He took no guff and gave none. He married my mother, a white Jewish woman, when she had 8 mixed-race black children, me being the last, and less than a year old. They added 4 more children to make it an even dozen, and he cared for all of us as if we were his own. I got enough for a baseball team, he joked. One day he was there, the next, a stroke, and he was gone. I virtually dropped out of high school after he died, failing every class. I spent the year going to movies on 42nd Street in Times Square with my friends. James is going through his revelation, my siblings snickered. Still, my sisters were concerned, my older brothers angry. I ignored them. Me and my hanging out boys were into the movies, Superfly, Shaft, and Reefer, which we smoked in as much quantity as possible. I snatched purses. I shoplifted. I even robbed a petty drug dealer once. And then in the afternoon, coming home after a day of cutting school, smoking reefer, waving razors, and riding the subways, I would see my mother pedaling her blue bicycle. She would ride in slow motion across the street. Murdoch Avenue in St. Albans section of Queens, the only white person in sight, as cars swerved around her and black motorists gawked at the strange, middle-aged white lady riding her ancient bicycle. It was her way of grieving, though I didn't know it at the time. Hunter Jordan, my stepfather, was dead. Andrew McBride, my biological father, had died while she was pregnant with me 14 years earlier. It was clear that Mommy was no longer interested in getting married again, despite the efforts of a couple of local preachers who were all Cadillacs and smiles. They knew that she, and thus we, were broke. At 51, she was still slender and pretty, with curly black hair, dark eyes, a large nose, a sparkling smile, and a bow-legged walk you could see a mile off. We used to call that Mommy's mad walk. And if she were doing it in your direction, all hell was gonna break loose. I'd seen her go up to some pretty tough dudes and shake her fists in their faces when she was angry, but that was before Daddy died. Now she seemed intent on playing the piano, dodging bill collectors, forcing us into college through sheer willpower, and riding her bicycle all over Queens. She refused to learn how to drive. Daddy's old car sat out front for weeks, parked at the curb, silent, clean, polished. Every day she rode her bike right past it, ignoring it. The image of her riding that bicycle typified her whole existence to me. Her oddness, her complete non-awareness of what the world thought of her. a nonchalance in the face of what I perceived to be imminent danger from blacks and whites who disliked her for being a white person in a black world. She saw none of it. She rode so slowly that if you looked at her from a distance, it seemed as if she wasn't moving. The image frozen, painted against the spring sky. A middle-aged white woman on an antique bicycle with black kids zipping past her on stingray bikes and skateboards, popping wheelies and throwing baseballs that whizzed past her head, tossing firecrackers that burst all around her. She ignored it all. She wore a flower print dress and black loafers, her head swiveling back and forth as she rode shakily past the triangle curb where I played stickball with my friends, up to the front of our house. She would stop teetering, shakily, catching her breath just before the bike collapsed onto the sidewalk. "Whew," she'd say, while my siblings, camped on the stoop of our house to keep an eye on her, shook their heads. My sister Dottie would say, "I sure wish you wouldn't ride that bike, Mom." I silently agreed, because I didn't want my friends seeing my white mother out there riding a bicycle. She was already white, that was bad enough. But to go out and ride an old bike that went out of style 100 years ago, and a grown-up no less, I couldn't handle that. As a boy, I always thought my mother was strange. She never cared to socialize with our neighbors. Her past was a mystery she refused to discuss. She drank tea out of a glass. She could speak Yiddish. She had an absolute distrust of authority and an insistence on complete privacy, which made, to me, her odder and our family even odder. She was the commander-in-chief of our house, because my stepfather did not live with us. He lived in Brooklyn until near the end of his life, staying away from the thronging masses to come home on weekends, bearing food and tricycles and the resolve to fix whatever physical thing we had broken during the week. The nuts and bolts of raising us was left to Mommy, who acted as chief surgeon for bruises, put iodine on it, religious consultant, put God first, war secretary. If someone hits you, crack 'em. Chief psychologist. What does it matter if you don't have money? If you don't have anything in your mind, what difference does it make? Matters revolving race and identity she ignored. As a kid, I remember wishing I were in the TV show Father Knows Best, where the father comes home from work every day wearing a suit and tie, and there are only enough kids to fit on his lap. Instead of in my house, where we walked around with huge holes in our pants, cheap Bobo sneakers that cost $1.99 at John's bargain store. With parents who were busy and distracted, my stepfather appearing only on weekends in sleeveless t-shirts, tools in hands, and Mommy bearing diapers, pins, washcloths, Q-tips, and a child in each arm. She barely had time to wipe the behind of one before another one was clawing and clutching at her skirts, screaming at the top of her lungs. Mommy put us to bed each night like slabs of meat, laying us out 3 to 4 to a bed, one head up to the headboard, the next with his toes to the headboard, and so on. Head up, toes down, she called as she kissed us goodnight and laid us out in proper position. I would sleep this way, smelling toes and feet, until I could stand it no more. Roll onto the floor with a clunk, cold on the floor. It was kill or be killed in my house, and Mommy understood that. In fact, she created the system. You were left to your own devices, or so you thought, until you were at your very wit's end, at which time she would step in and rescue you. I was terrified when it came my turn to go to school. On the ill-fated morning, Mommy chased me all around the kitchen trying to dress me as my siblings laughed at my terror. "The bus ain't bad," one quipped, except for the snakes. Another added, "Sometimes the bus never brings you home." Guffaws all around. "Be quiet," Mommy said. Inspecting my first day of school attire, my clothes were clean, but not new. The pants had been Billy's, the shirt was David's, the coat had been passed down from Dennis to Billy to David to Richie to me. It was a gray coat with a fur collar that had literally been chewed up by somebody. Mommy dusted it off with a whisk broom, set out 8 or 9 bowls, poured oatmeal on each one, left instructions for the eldest to feed the rest. Then she ran a comb through my head. The sensation was like a tractor pulling my curls off. "Come on," she said, "I'll walk you to the bus stop. Surprise, reward, me and Mommy, alone." It was the first time I remember ever being alone with my mother. It became the high point of my day, a memory so sweet, it burns into my mind like a tattoo. Mommy walking me to the bus stop and every afternoon picking me up. One afternoon as we walked home from the bus stop, I asked Mommy, "Why don't you look like the other mothers?" "Because I'm not them," she said. "Who are you?" I asked. "I'm your mother, Madam Toastmaster."
Thank you, Stephany, for sharing such a profound reading. 1 minute for evaluation. Men don't listen.
What?
They don't listen.
We have something to say, we'll listen. Gloves are off.
Women should not blame men for not listening. It is not their fault. This is a scientific explanation according to Discovery.com. Since women's voices have many more frequencies than men's, the human brain must work harder to analyze sound frequencies and comprehend the meaning intended. Mirror, mirror on the wall, who is the most pretty of all? A woman spends an average of 2 years of her life looking at herself in the mirror. A man spends only 6 months. However, men look at a reflection of themselves as often as women do. It is just that women take longer looks due to more necessary maintenance a woman has to do in front of the mirror. All right, our second part of the meeting is dedicated to our table topic portion. This portion is where members are chosen randomly by our table topic master this morning to give roughly 30-60 seconds response to a question posed. This morning, as a table topic master, she is going to make us do all the talking. Please help me welcome Patricia P.
Well, this has been a pithy meeting with speeches. So, the Battle of the Sexes is quite historic. It's cultural, it's religious, it's political. It even leaks into our careers. Let's see, Ernst, can I ask you a question? No?
Sure.
It's okay? Okay. Is it true that stress causes gray hair?
Rest my Does stress cause gray hairs? I really don't know. I've seen people who have incredible stress and they still have the same hair color. Like Pablo, look at him. But if I look at myself, I've had a plenty amount of stress. And I can realize that over the years, my hairs have changed to the color it is now. My dad, who had a lot of stress, his was as well. However, it has a lot to do with other things as well, such which your body makeup and all kinds of hormones, etc., because I've seen people who have a very stressful situation and they not only have full set of hair, but it's still in their natural color or the original. So I don't necessarily think that has something to do with stress or not. So at the end of the day, I really don't know. That's as pithy as I could possibly be.
It is true, stress does cause gray hair, it is true. Julia, this is a woman question. When should you never wash or wax your car?
When should you never wax or wash your car? Thank you for that question, Ma'am Toastmaster, but I do know the answer to that because I have a brand new car, as many of you well know. I'm very proud of that new car. And the best way to wash your car is to take it to the dealership and have them wash it. But if you don't have that luxury, the best way to wash and wax is when it's not sunny, when it's overcast, or when it's in the evening and the sun is setting, so you don't have all of those water spots. That is the best time to wash and wax your car. And you'll have a chance.
And that concludes safety topics.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Men drivers. They're bad for the environment. According to a study, British men waste 6 million hours of driving each year, burning gas and polluting the environment because they refuse to ask for directions. At the end of the day, according to Grammy winner George Carlin, men are from Earth and women are from Earth. Deal with it. We now move to the third part of the meeting devoted to our evaluations. Please help me welcome to our general evaluator this morning, Stephen Morgan.
Thank you, Alexandra. I'm sure you were saying something, but I didn't hear it. In the meantime, I'm hoping that our evaluators were listening a little more closely then, since they're supposed to be giving direct feedback to our prepared speakers on their speeches so that we all can learn. Beginning with the evaluation of Martin's Icebreaker, please welcome Julia Kaufman.
Thank you, Stephen, fellow Toastmasters, our guests today, and especially Martin. It is such a pleasure to be able to evaluate you, Martin, your Icebreaker. Probably my favorite speech because we get to know about the person. That's really what I love about Toastmasters, is learning to know about the people that you are meeting with. And we got to meet and know a little bit more about you today. For an icebreaker, I was impressed with all of the different skill sets you brought to your speech. You had no notes, you needed no notes. You came in and you told us what you were going to tell us, and then you proceeded to tell us in a very structured and well-organized manner. You told us about where you're from, which just totally captures my interest. You also drew us in by asking, the most interesting thing about people is probably where they're from. And that right away made us think about our background, and then you proceeded to tell us about yours, about being from Argentina, which is exotic to me, and then going over to England, and then coming over to the United States, all well organized, structured. And I had to think about it for a minute about, were you prepared? And And I was so impressed at how you came up and gave us this speech that seemed off the cuff. And maybe it was, maybe your background, maybe you're a writer, but somehow you came up and gave us this, delivered a wonderful, well-crafted speech in a very conversational manner, which is great skill sets to come up and engage your audience. I was impressed with the words you used, the manner in which you told us about your story, and your family. I got to feel like I knew a little bit about your background. The area that you have an opportunity with, the only area I felt, is your conclusion. It was not as well thought through. It was almost off the cuff. It was very, this is thank you for, you never thank the audience. We thank you for telling us about it. So the next time, work on clearly focus, what's your conclusion? What do you want us to leave with? And the next one, you're going to hit it out of the ballpark because this was already a well-orchestrated speech. And I can't wait to hear your next one. Thank you.
Evaluating Paul's speech. I'm sure Gus is quite eager to tell us his opinions.
Thank you, Mr. General Evaluator, fellow Toastmasters, guests, and Paul. You were very piffy on that story. Every poppy story that you told and was very piffy. I like the story. Now, part of the goal of the objective of this speech is to make us laugh. Did Paul do that? Yes, he made us laugh. And also, Paul, you were able to describe the stories you told about at the restaurant and going into the wrong car. I can just imagine the guy who drove away, what he was smelling. And also I can just imagine your wife thinking she left that diaper in the car. I never want to meet that guy. So Paul was very descriptive in telling that story and also talking about the one with his son, one of the twins at the house, how you were able to just spray hose and clean that up. I think those stories were very good as you described them. I also like the way you talk about your family story. I think when you want people to laugh at something, talk about yourself. When you talk about your own jokes and you can actually let people laugh about yourself, it's very, very helpful. I don't know whether you want to be a stand-up comedian someday. Which leads me to say what opportunity or challenge you may have is, I love to watch comedians and storytellers. So sometimes just work on some facial expression, when you get to the punchline. Your punchlines were very good. And if you give your punchline, you just get a pause and look at the audience, and then you can just move on, seamlessly. So that's just one place of improvement. Paul has done very well, in the beginning, he didn't use his hands a lot. He did very well with that. That was well controlled. And the story was to the point. Each of those stories, I believe you thought it through. You were very descriptive, and it was awesome presentation. I know as you work on that manual on entertaining speech, you may get on the road and keep doing more speech. So that's my evaluation of your beefy, poppy story.
Since Carrie had a meeting that took her unexpectedly scheduled, took her out, Pablo got drafted as he walked in. Although I believe we still need your dues, so.
Here's the way to get it.
Thank you for taking up the mantle anyway. Evaluating Stephany's project on reading a story. Please welcome Pablo P.
It's no secret that I'm always trying to run away from the evaluation. And now here I am evaluating one of the best Toastmasters in front of my father-in-law. So thank you very much. Madam Toastmaster, fellow Toastmasters, and especially Stephany. Well, as you know, I don't have too much of experience doing this, but I'm going to try to do my best. For me, one of the best things was the pronunciation of all the words that you were reading. I'm always paying attention to that because I'm always trying to learn more about the English language. And as you were speaking and as you were reading, it was great for me to hear all the pronunciation, how you really, because it helps me also to know how to pronunciate in the future. You really give me that part of the story that I was really there. I was thinking of the bike and how tall she was and how beautiful she was and all the kids and it was a great story. I was really deep into that. One of the things that I will suggest for the future is maybe that you use more of your emotions and in your hands a little bit more and look at us and at the time you were reading. Especially there was a time that there was a couple of words like grifa that didn't know what it meant. So maybe you will put a little bit more of emotion or show it with your body. I will try to picture it. I hope that I'm guessing correctly what it was. But that's my suggestion, that you will do it that way. The other suggestion that I have maybe is to have a little bit of an introduction, so you can have a little bit of the background. I didn't know that it was the case or not. I was trying to read, but to have a little bit of this introduction at the start. But more than that, it was great, and it's always a pleasure to hearing you. So thank you very much for the opportunity.
Thank you, Pablo. I now ask for the technical table to give their reports as we get more feedback to learn from, beginning with our timer. Diane, how did our speakers do this?
Well, we had two speakers that were not very pithy today. Martin was a little over at 6:29. Stephany was 6 seconds over at 10:06. Paul, you were under, so that helped. Great pithiness. Ernst and Julia, during your table topics, you guys were great. You were way under. Ernst, 1 minute and 18 seconds. Julia, 36 seconds. And our evaluators, all of you guys were pithy and deserve rewards. Julia, 2 minutes and 22 seconds. Gus, 2:27. And Pablo, 2:24.
Erica, how did we do on the ahs and ums this morning?
We made a little money today, but not a lot. My report, Alexandra, you only had one tongue click. Ernst, he had 2 ahs, 1 but. Diane, you just had 1 column. Martin, I can't critique you or put anything down, but I will suggest to watch those buds. If Bud were here today, he would tell you to not stop thinking. And when you don't stop thinking, then you won't say that you're free. Paul is clean. Stephany is clean. Although I will say I was distracted, and you can judge me on my evaluation with the poop topic. I was trying to stay focused.
Yeah, how can you call me clean after that?
You had one so, meaning you started a sentence with a conjunction. Julia, only 1 and. Gus, 2 ahs. 2, you know. 1 and. Pablo. 4 ahs. 1 and you had 4 double clutches. Although it really flowed really well, but you know how to use those double clutches. So all those infractions are 5 cents a piece. That is my report.
Except for Martin, since it was his icebreaker.
Martin is free.
And now for our grammarian's report, Ernst. How did we do this?
You know, regards to Alex, you used the word of the day once in unusual sentence. I don't know whether it's an unusual sentence, but to spend 2 years in front of the mirror is something I never heard before.
I got to that.
In Topic Master, Patricia, you used the word of the day. I used it as well. Julia, you used the word of the day. Martin used the word of the day. Some unusual sentence in my conversational language, which is different. Paul, holy sh. Poop therapy. Poop prime. You were very pithy with your story. However, you did not use the word of the day. So, there's 25 cents. Stephany, great job. Many great sentences. Of course, you were reading them, not drafting them. But you did not use the word of the day. So 25 cents.
Couldn't use it. The author didn't use it.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Is that a good
Occasional O's. Pay up.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. So she does not pay the money. Julia, you did not use the word of the day.
I did not.
Being from Argentina appears to be exotic. Wow. That was good. That's great. Gus, you used the word of the day. Pablo, you did not use the word of the day, but you did a great job for evaluating. I just can't put myself in his place trying to figure out how to evaluate Stephany on a reading story. Man, I tell you, I wanted to run around the circle here twice or 3 times. Diane, you used the word of the day. And Erica used the word of the day as well. And of course, I used the word as well. That's my evaluation.
As for the general evaluation of the meeting, I took on the calling to order so that the Toastmaster didn't have to introduce herself. She actually still did the role of Sergeant at Arms, putting everything up and getting everything together, all set up well. Only one thing I'll point out, the union field is supposed to be on the top left. Yep. Regardless of which way the flag is hanging, so that's just backwards. No big deal there. Now that the gloves are off, we've had a very interesting choice for a theme this morning. Although, Alexandra, as you were saying, you were going to be quite objective, I suggest you look up the meaning of the word objective. Since they never let us read that, that would explain why. The preparation that we had for this morning, the speeches did a great job, the speakers did a great job preparing. We had some very interesting, dynamic, and very wide-ranging topics going on this morning. Stephany, good job with the actual introduction that you did provide the Toastmaster. Alexandra using it, very short, "D" is the appropriate term. Very appropriate to getting us set in yourself with your introduction to get us started. Alexandra, the title of Paul's speech, you completely changed the meaning when you changed the title. You said that brown bag, and that's why Richard and I were both going, what? Because it says that brown stuff, and that really changed the meaning of what we were expecting.
That's what you sent me, right? The brown stuff?
Yeah, but you
When
said
you
the
said
brown
that
bag.
brown, you said brown bag.
Oh, sorry.
The brown boy.
No, certainly.
I made it clear right when I started.
Yes, I got all this.
It feels like a mayor.
That's brown bag.
It's very, sometimes the title is important, so make sure you get that part straight. The evaluations, good jobs provided with the feedback, the suggestions, and the encouragement to provide forward. Pablo, you were actually quite insightful, for much as you were avoiding doing the evaluation. Good suggestions in there. For Stephany, the only thing I would point out is, before you go from suggestion to conclusion, add in one of the positives. One of the good things, because it's nice to end on the uplift. Pat, good job with table topics. And don't worry, you can call on anybody, really. We just usually like to ask the guests ahead of time. The members are fair game. And you did avoid calling the evaluators, which was helpful. The other things I had on here, I heard a lot of blah, 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 but that was something else. Given the topic of the meeting, please excuse any of my outbursts from the audience. I do tend to heckle when you start getting to a point where you're trying to draw me in that way. But you handled it well. Got to be able to handle that once in a while. That would cover my general evaluation. To move on to the business of the meeting, we do like to ask our guests what they thought of the meeting. And Pablo's father-in-law, if you would be willing to tell us, you don't have to, but if you'd be willing to tell us what you thought of the meeting, we'd be happy to hear it. Okay, you want to tell us?
To begin with, I think the impression that I received was everybody here is friends, very friendly situation. And then the speakers, they were very outgoing, nice gestures, they were very natural in general. And I feel that there is a good atmosphere. It's a very nice arrangement we have. Thank you.
Next week we're planning on elections for the next term for officers. I've tried getting a hold of people as I could this week. If I didn't get to you, please make a point of asking, or you might get nominated for something. Of those offices that I've heard interest for so far, I've heard of interest for President of America, VP Education, I'm willing. For membership, Gus is willing, but as apparently said, it's the only one he'll do. No one has yet offered for public relations, VP. For the mentorship, Stephany is willing to step to that one. Secretary, Paul is willing to take a second year for that one. Kerry said he can have it. Treasurer, I heard interest from Diane and from Ernst so far, and from Sergeant at Arms Alex, who was already stepping up to do the role at this time. That doesn't mean you can't offer to do any of the roles already in place or to step up to any of the others. You don't have to have any experience because training will be provided. That's what Toastmasters is here for. Get up and learn, make those mistakes before you go out there and make them there. So please consider next week elections. For those who are considering any of the offices, be prepared if necessary to speak on a minute or two on if you have anything you would like to say as a campaign speech.
Any comment on VP membership? Who was interested? VP?
You were interested, and
no, who did you mention?
But you.
Oh, VP mentorship.
Mentorship.
Stephany. Oh, Stephany. Okay.
It's not an official.
It's not an official office
or position.
Who's VP?
There's three VPs. Vice presidents. Which one?
VP.
Education, membership, or public relations. There's three. Or well, mentorship.
Okay, so VP, mentorship, Stephany and Gus.
No, not
membership. Gus was interested.
Membership, not mentorship.
The schedule for next week. First, June 3rd. Gus, you are listed as Toastmaster. Ready for that one?
Yes.
Okay, good. We have Mike and Jeff listed as speakers. Mike is not going to be here. He's supposed to be out for the next 6 weeks or so. We're leaving the third slot open for the elections. I'm Table Topics Master. Pablo, you are listed as General Evaluator. Are you willing to do that one? Are you going to be here?
Yeah, I'm going to be here, but I don't know if I'm ready for General Evaluator.
Okay.
Evaluation.
I'll do it.
Easier.
Diane wants it.
Haven't done that one yet.
Okay. Alexandra, your evaluator. Joe McWilliams was listed, but don't think we're going to be seeing him. Paul Ramarian? Maybe?
I don't remember if I'm going to be here.
Timer is therefore open. Erica is odd counter.
Well, I just did it, so what was the other one? What's the grammarian was missing?
Timer.
Timer, I'll do timer.
Timer for that one. So therefore odd counter is open.
I'll take care of it.
Ernst's quick to jump up. You sure Pablo shouldn't get that opportunity?
I need to general evaluator.
Wait, we need a speaker and an evaluator, Ernst. Are you willing to do one of those?
Do what?
You want to speak?
I just speak it.
Okay. Pablo, would you like the odd counter spot?
The what?
Odd counter.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Yes.
good. And therefore, we have an evaluator slot open. You would like to step into that?
Take it.
Julia, thank you very much. Following week, Jorge's Toastmaster. Pablo, you actually listened to speak, so is Ernst, but we can shift that one since he'll speak next week in Erica. And then, the recognition being most important, I like to do. Thank you, Martin, for doing your icebreaker. For giving the most important speech you'll give in Toastmasters the first time. Thank you. And sorry for a few minutes over. We will see everyone here again next week.
Hey.